Kan je nou dat ding is de ding is was ding is nou.
The ding is donged? The ding is what?
The ding is dinged.
The ding is dinged.
It's time for donging.
Ding dong, the witch is gone. Ding dong, the witch is gone.
The funny thing is, Jason, I've been it 5 times, and I know I just thought dinger, a lot of things were called dinger. I didn't realise it was thing.
I've noticed it is as bad as you said so.
Dinger, dinger.
Yeah.
You know,
Dingen.
All there is ding.
yeah.
Wat nu vandaag?
So, the only thing that feels to talk about is love again. It's like, yes, love. So in the beginning, which is nowhere because there was never a beginning, but in the beginning, there is just pure aliveness. But that's a weird word because that implies deadness as the opposite. So we kind of think of movement maybe as aliveness or something, or something being alive. You could maybe say beingness, but then again, what's that something being? It's all bizarre words. And there's two sides to this beingness, but there's not really two sides because it's all one, but we're going to just say there's two sides to this being. It's nothing, it's just potential energy or nothing at all, and it explodes into form and creates form. But this form is still nothing. This form is still nothingness, oneness, or that same potential energy that exploded, or even maybe it's not even potential energy, maybe it's a word before that. It explodes into its potential energy and forms have begun. I remember hearing this joke once about in the beginning there was nothing, and then God said, let there be light, and there was still nothing, but you could just see it. I thought that was a good one. But it's incredibly hard to talk about because you can't sit in any word. So you're like, duck, 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 jumping and dancing around. So this is nothingness, and it's not really that beingness is in the middle. That's a load of nonsense, but that's how we're going to explain it today. That's how it's coming out. There's this beingness, and then there's this everythingness. And the beingness, you can say, is everything. Everything is being. But the backside of being is emptiness. Okay, so we start with beingness now. We've done that. We're on to beingness. Explained what beingness is perfectly clearly. Now we're at beingness. So there's this beingness, this aliveness. And in this aliveness, it creates a body. Or it's a little bit more complicated than that, but we'll just start that it's created a body. It's created many things before, but we'll just get to the body. So there's this human body that comes to life. So a baby is born, and there is this beingness which is expressing itself as a baby's body, this beautiful baby's body. And there's no sense of I in the baby's body. There's just pure beingness, pure aliveness. The baby has no sense of inside, outside, right, wrong, good, bad, cot, baby, mum, baby. There's just pure beingness, pure aliveness, and everything is happening in that aliveness. And in order for the baby's body to experience, there has to be other objects. In order for the baby to exist, there needs to be a world that exists, world full of things. So the baby cannot experience without a world full of other things, without the cot, without the air, without the light, without the room or whatever, without the environment, the baby cannot experience. But it's not the baby experiencing. The body of the baby is used for the beingness to experience. It's not the baby really experiencing, but we'll call it the baby. Beingness has created the body in order to experience the world. So it's created a brain, and the brain, I assume, although I'm making this up and I'm not a scientist, I don't know where I know this from. You could say everything or nothing. But the baby's brain produces awareness, so awareness of other objects, but the other objects are also awareness. In order for there to be awareness, there needs to be other objects, otherwise there would be nothing again. So these all things are happening at the same time. So awareness and the other objects come at the same time. So in the brain, awareness is formed, and then there's other objects perceived through the baby's body. Then after a few years, or maybe after a few months, a mild form of thinking begins. And then thinking is another experience in beingness. So originally there's beingness, so there's nothing, beingness, the baby's body, and with the baby's body the whole of the world comes alive, and with the awareness, the whole world comes alive. But nothing is separate from the baby's body, that everything else is needed for the baby's body to experience. There can't just be a baby's body. Everything else comes with the baby's body and with the awareness of the baby's body, or with the awareness that's in the baby's body. So awareness isn't the source of things. Awareness is a functioning in order to experience. How are we going there? Yeah? Everyone's getting this? Great. Okay, we just carry on then. Just take a bit of coffee, then it will become even more clear. Okay. Then more things begin to appear in the baby as the baby's body grows in a world which is not separate from the baby. They're all dependent on each other and are the same thing, the same energy. But the baby's body is being used as the portal to experience. But in order to experience, there has to be objects to experience. So one and the same thing, experiencing and the experienced. Okay. So the baby's body begins to develop more things that it can do. So our thoughts begin to come in. The name gets put onto the baby, so the body is a John. And the body begins to have the sense that when it cries, milk comes. Or hug comes. It begins to do this and begins to feel the body, and then it begins to suss out that it can't feel the cot. It's so cute when you do it, and then so they're beginning to suss out the environment. I've never had a baby, so again this is all made up, but it's all made up from everything or nothing, so that's okay. Not Lisa. And then they begin to suss out an edge to the body, and the edge to the feeling of the body, and the edge to other things, and what is we would call inside or outside. But the thinking's not that complicated yet. More and more thinking is created. So so they learn about pleasure, crying, and the pleasure comes, the milk comes. They begin to perceive a name of some sort. And then eventually this energy comes in where, with all this stimuli of feeling the body and all this thinking and the brain activity, they begin to get a sense of, okay, I am the body. That is who I am. And they don't think it, it's an energy that comes in. And they start feeling like they are something separate from the world. But it's not a really logical thing, it's more of an energetic expression. Suddenly it's the energy is inside the body, a baby in relationship with the world. And then thoughts begin, and all these thoughts are influenced by the environment. So they're taught things like what good and bad is. They're taught to be a good boy, so he's called John, he's taught to be a good boy. And sometimes he's taught to be a bad boy, just they think they're teaching him to be a good boy, but they're validating him when he does naughty things. So he begins to get this idea of good and bad, and this is a really important one. what's good to do and what's bad to do. And he gets taught this word choice. He's got a choice to be good or bad. So these thoughts begin to run. I've got to choose well. If I choose well, I get a sweet, or I get the milk. If I choose correctly, I get pleasure. If I choose incorrectly, I get pain. And this develops even more as the baby begins to get older. And the whole time the baby is, what's happening is the energy is focusing on the thoughts and the stories and on the sensation of the baby. It's begun to believe that that is just who it is, just the baby. So then it begins to be taught, it goes to school and it begins to be taught how to relate to others. And the others are separate and other names, and it's begin to be taught that it gets pleasure if it's successful intellectually, if it's successful at school. And this is a gradual thing, and it's not an outside world teaching it, it's just like this kaleidoscope. It's just one thing moving to another, it's just energy moving round and round, but this is just the kaleidoscope of a baby. It's just the outside and the inside. There's no outside and inside, it's just a flow of energy moving that way. And the flow of energy is to identify, that's the thing that happens in the child, is to identify with the body. So then it gets taught that human love is pleasure. So human love, to get love from others, to get approval from others, is to do good things, or sometimes bad things. It's taught to do bad things and think that that will get its love, depending on the conditioning of the parents and the genetic makeup of the parents. So it gets more and more these ideas about where it can get love from. And it begins to learn that pleasure is love and pleasure is out there to obtain. But it's a really gentle movement of energy. It's like most probably like a chemical reaction happening in the brain. More and more energy goes into this looking for love in the world. And it begins to come more and more solid who you are. And it's amazing to watch kids grow their self if you've got kids. I was with a 10-year-old kid in the summer. And he's beginning to make up reasons to why things happen and why people do things. And it's like sometimes really off, and you look and you're like, okay. Like he makes up these stories about why people have done things, or why they own certain things, or why they, and they're really weird stories. I don't know where he's got them from, but they just seem to have formed. And then he sees the world through those stories. That is like that because they are like that. And it's amazing to watch these, and they really want to be someone. They really want to be and explore being someone. It's exciting for them to be someone. And they get more and more interested in what they look like, in what others think of them. What else do they get interested in? In what, basically, what interests them is getting approval. Because that love and that pleasure gives a high, gives a chemical reaction of highness. It gives a really beautiful feeling. So more and more, the body-mind mechanism is taught to look into the future and to look to the world for its happiness. So it looks in this world of things for its happiness and for its love and for its pleasure. And what a dance it begins to play. And as a teenager, or younger teenager, this can be really exciting. But then it also can become really scary, because the ability to imagine the positive things, to get love in the positive things, is also the ability to imagine losing it in all those things. So the opposite imagination can appear. And this activity of the brain, which I presume it's the brain producing all these thoughts, but I don't know, it could be the heart, who knows? It could be the toes. It could be nothing, it's ultimately nothing. But there's an activity happening where there's a looking for love. And this energy gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And sometimes, already now, it seems like quite young teenagers are feeling uncomfortable with their life. They feel this burning sense of not good enough, that they can't do enough things, or they can't imagine how to be good enough, how to be loved, or they feel it's impossible to get that love in the world of things. And it's even like I've had calls from 10 or 13-year-olds, young people now are beginning to come unsatisfied quicker. And there's the television at the moment which influenced this. We get taught, when I was growing up, the big thing was these romantic comedies. It was always about finding the love. I think we've moved on more now to films. It all seems to be like machine guns and not so, some romantic comedies, but mainly a lot of adventure or action films. And so whenever there's uncomfortableness in the body, the imagination begins to imagine the next way to get love, the next way to get that pleasure. And this whole false world is grown, this whole false reality, and these made up stories about why things happen, this limited look on reality. This happened because of, and it names three events as to why this happened, but really this happened because of everything that's ever happened. You can't separate out anything. And it's okay to communicate, oh, I ate all the chocolate because I was hungry. I mean, it's okay to communicate, but really it goes back forever. You ate chocolate because of forever, because of everything that ever happened. Or nothing that ever happened, whichever way you want to put it. And the human begins to get limited perspective. So it gets a limited perspective in thought, and it believes that this is true. It doesn't even believe it's true, it's just true. These thought systems, he's an asshole, that's just true. They did that to me because they don't respect me enough. It's just true. And the rest of society tells you, yes, he did that because he doesn't respect you enough. And that's just true. And we can even go, that's just, well, most of the human population, but it'll be different in different cultures. Like in Islamic culture, there'll be different reasons as to why things, compared to a Christian culture. But they'll all have reasons as to why things have happened. And you get stuck in, particularly in relationships where this sense of wanting love is sparked a lot, you get stuck in this thought pattern of, he didn't give me enough attention because he's scared of women or something. And that because we're so conditioned now by psychology, that's like, that feels, yeah, okay, yeah, that's true, yeah, I can see that he's scared. But that is such a limited perspective. That's a very limited psychological idea. And so then we look to all his fears. Well, when he was younger, his mother, or can't think of all the stories. His mother, didn't give him enough attention, and his dad was a really scary father figure. And that there's a limited way we can communicate about the past, but it's not why he's treating you unrespectfully. He's not even treating you unrespectfully. That is a false illusion anyway. Nobody can treat you unrespectfully. You can only perceive that they treat you unrespectfully. Hot work, isn't it? All this hot air coming out of me. Wow. So we begin to, but we really believe they're true, and then this whole argument starts. You say to your partner, "You're treating me like that because you don't respect me because you're scared of your father," and then the other one's like, "How dare you? You treat me like that because your mother did that to you as a kid." I mean, like we have these insane arguments about words that we've made up anyway, and that we've associated with certain things in a very limited perspective. We've forgotten everything else. It was a movement of everything. And we could talk lightly about things, but there's never an actuality to anything that's said or thought. And you are never ever going to find what you're really looking for in telling your partner or convincing your partner of anything. I don't know why we're talking about partners. Or the partners in the room are like... It's just coming out. Oh yeah. Hello. We can see you.
Yeah.
And you're never gonna find peace in convincing them that they've got problems or issues. You're never gonna find peace in convincing them that they need to love you more, or they need to give you more attention. And you can be so sneaky about this because the mind can be so great in convincing itself and the other that, yeah, I know ultimately it won't make any difference, but, you know, relatively, you will just never find anything there. The only freedom is this. It's always like this. This is the only home. This is the only love. Everything will be lost. Like you'll get them to treat you nicely for 10 minutes and then it'll be like, actually, that's too much attention now. You're too over the top. Back off. But the mind's so great the way it dances. And it tends not to notice that 10 minutes ago it said it wanted more attention and now it's like, no, back off, back off. And those loops will never give freedom. The body, yes, can say, do the washing up or do this, but there's no hope to find peace there. Something else will happen. The house will just suddenly fall down. You'll be like, oh, okay. Now we've got no house. Or you'll suddenly get $1 million and then it's a whole different experience. You'll never ever find it in the flow. They even say that they did an experiment and people that have been given huge amount of money end up becoming incredibly depressed. It's just never what you think. So this is your freedom. So back to that baby story, all this nonsense that I've gone to, back to that baby story. At the very beginning, there was this beingness, and that beingness has stayed through this whole dance. This whole dance. It's always been there. It's everything, and it's nothing. And that is your love. I mean, isn't that the most beautiful message? It's not my message. It's just the way it is. The most beautiful message that we could be is that your nature, what you always sought, was right here. Was you. And it's not actually in the baby. The baby and the whole world are that beingness. It's just the baby is used to experience the world. The baby is just a form used to experience it all. But that beingness is actually everything. It's looking from that baby's perspective. So it's not just beingness in here, it's everything and everywhere and everything that's ever happened. And I can say all these words and I can dance around them and they're not quite right, but this is known. It's always that same beingness, no matter what comes and goes. And that is the love that you seek. Your nature, which is not a body thing, but it was there even before the baby's body was born, but it has to view the world through a body. Well, maybe it doesn't. But in this one, it has to view the world through a body. In that dream, or whatever you call it, it's always that beingness where the body has got a chopped off leg, can't hear, can't see, has got all the money in the world, all the pleasure in the world, the same beingness. And it's absolute love. And it's not what you imagine, it's what you are. The mind will constantly go into, it's what you are. It's right here, everywhere. And this speaking that's happening now is a result of everything, or, if you prefer the more negative, nothing. That looking there is a result of everything that's ever happened and ever going to happen, which is nothing. You never speak because you want to speak, because you choose to speak. You speak because of everything. They never do something because they chose to do something. They speak because of everything. It's taken everything for this. If we think of the Big Bang, I mean, that's just our made-up story, but everything. And then it comes out. If you've watched Lucy, that amazing scene at the end, where it all goes back into the Big Bang. You go out, I think, first. You go out into the whole universe first, and then back into the Big Bang, and then suddenly, nothing, it all disappears. It's amazing. And this here is a result of everything, which has never happened. Nothing. But it's here, the everything. And this speaking is not the truth, because this speaking that's coming out, like everything, is only... How do you say that? It's only... It's like... This speaking is limited to the... I can't say it. Because this is a movement of everything, this speaking is only a part of the movement. That's really hard to say. Can you sense that? It's like... And then eventually a new speaker will come, and then there'll be a pushing into a new way of speaking, because that all of... I can't say it. I can feel it. It's like... The best way I could describe it is like with art. So you know how a great piece of art is relative to everything that came before. So if you've had somebody doing like, is he called Moe? No, well actually he's different. But you know how like Suzanne, it was suddenly like so different what he did. It was so beautiful what he did and so different from everything that came before. Suddenly that was the famous piece of art, and that was what really worked for everybody. And then after time, if someone did a Suzanne again, that was not relevant anymore. It went on to new art. It moved on to a new painting that came about. So there's no great piece of art. It's always relative to everything else that's happened. And that's the same when you speak about non-duality. So you'll never ever find the truth in non-duality. Like you can never find the right way of speaking about it. It's always relevant to everything else. So you can never speak truth, you can never find truth. But yet you are truth. You can never find it in these words, in anything. Well, that was an explosion for sure. I was on the coffee in the break. Shall we open a window? So good, but thanks. No,
No?
yay! Yeah, it just comes up.
You have to lift the whole window now.
The result of everything that's been said. And when you're falling off. Yeah.
So everything you see, everything you hear, or everything that's seen, let's sit doing one non-duality one, everything that's seen, everything that's heard, everything that's spoken, everything that's eaten and felt, is it. And it's not even you hearing or feeling or seeing it. It's one insanely beautiful, huge experience. And that's the best one. The cutest. I know, this is just the exception, that's the God. The God and the dog.
Let's do something.
Yeah. And I know the question that the mind wants to keep coming back to, which is what can I do? And really what it wants to do is, all it wants to do is get to love. That's all it wants to do. And I think a lot of people hearing and listening to this message, they keep getting stuck on, there's nothing I can do. And that is not what I'm saying. She agrees.
You can go outside. You can do something.
She's so excited to come in. So then she can dominate the whole room and sit here. Like, back off, guys. This is my chicken. She's my chicken. Oh. Everyone's like, oh. It expresses everything. The delight that. What was the saying before the chicken?
There's nothing you can do, but that's not exactly what I'm saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. That's what the mind hears when because the question comes up, what can I do? And it's not the point, what can I do?
Yeah.
There's a puppy! There's a puppy! Hello, Sweetie.
Yes.
There's a puppy! Oh yeah, you're gorgeous. So it's not the point, but it's so hard to talk about this because as a child, you're taught you've got to choose your happiness, you've got to choose your pleasure, you've got to choose the right way. But it's such a tricky one. Some speakers, they just say, well, you might as well give out something. Oh yeah, sorry, I lost in the dog.
Some people say you might as well.
You might. Some speakers, their theory or what expressed through their body is you might as well do something just to distract the mind, like, and then you can speak about this and all those sort of things. That's not the tendency to come out here. But you see, it's not the point, the doing, but the mind is so trained to do, to seek and get, to think about it and get.
The words you are saying, pronouncing,
Yeah.
not perceived by us like a story, and with our own story, we try to. There is a fight between the story you're telling and our own story.
But that's the
to
negative
resolve the
way of
situation.
looking at it. That might be something that's happening,
Yeah.
and then there might be hearing this beyond the story. Ultimately, there's always a hearing this beyond the story. But yeah, that game might play out for a while of like trying to match up to that story, trying to take on that story as if it's some form of truth. But I think mostly what's happening here is just this bursting of energy of everything. That's everything, this. And then the mind, but even those sort of things, like the mind trying to take this on, and it's going into this kind of victim thing again of what the mind's doing to us. It goes, like, there's no victim here at all. Sometimes gives the experience of that, but it's not victim to anything. But back to this doing thing. So it's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about getting something in the future. But then this activity keeps coming up. What can I do? Because if I do something, then it can feel relaxing now. If I imagine that I can do something, then it relaxes me now. That's okay for that to happen, to imagine that you can do something. And that's so okay. The imagination was never the enemy. It was just a functioning that got excited. And it's happening, this journey home, which never left home, but this seeming journey, seeming and apparent, we go to Naho, seemingly, apparent, seemingly, I can't say it, seemingly the leaving of home, no, I can't do it, it's always going home. That's the only place the story can go. I mean, the story can't really go home, but it can't have ever gone anywhere. It's gonna pop. It's gonna dismantle itself. It's like Lucy, though. It does it just like on its own. And it, just like the river going down the stream, or just like everything. It's always been happening on its own. It's never been about you. But it's so easy to get into the trap of there's nothing I can do. It's just a depression. This is empty. This is meaningless. It's a trick. Well, not really a trick. How can anything be a trick? It's a game. It's just that's not what's being talked about here. There's nothing you can do. Who? Who's speaking now? Who's hearing now? Who's looking now? Who's thinking now? Who's feeling now? Just this boundlessness, this everythingness. I can't even believe all this is coming out without a question. Oh!
Story should ever be wondered by what is happening.
Huh?
The story should ever be wondered by what is happening all the time, whatever it is.
I don't understand.
Should be enjoyed. Yeah, know all the actions you're doing, the thoughts you're doing, whatever you do, walking or even the thinking or even the story. It's just what it is, and it's like you should be amazed for what it is,
You
not
shouldn't.
creating another story.
Well, you can't. It's not. It's like should or shouldn't is impossible. It is as it is.
Yes.
Like it is. If there's got to be a period of depression and a period of feeling meaningless and lousy, then that's the flow that's got to happen. It's not happening to you. It's not happening to somebody that's been alive for 40 years. Or 42 years, you told me? Just to tell everyone straight away. 43 years. Oops.
Leon knows these things.
Yes, but you understand, you start at 40 and it's just like your mother, and then
Yeah.
you end with the right number.
Yeah, 72. Mum's like, ah. It's like the illusion that it's happened to you, and you're feeling depressed, and you've felt it, or you've felt it for the last 2 years, and it's because of your story, your life, and you've done something wrong, or you've done something great.
I could feel lazy, for example, and say then I shouldn't be lazy.
No.
So there is a story,
Yeah.
but
It's just the
you should accept.
No, you can't accept it, because what's playing in that moment is an expectation of what this body mind mechanism wants to look like, and it's just a thought happening and with an energy to it. So there's an expectation of being active, and then there's the experience of laziness. So there's this conflict. That's just the way it goes, and that will run its way out. And there's nothing you have to be. You don't have to be. What's the opposite to lazy? Active in order to be happy.
No.
You don't have to be anything, and it's just the false idea that activity is your happiness. That activity is what you look for, that it's going to give you that love. It's
So
never going to give it to you.
So even if you're lazy and the story appears that you shouldn't be
Lazy. And
it's
then-
also perfect.
Well, it doesn't feel perfect. That's what I call suffering.
Yeah.
It feels uncomfortable. But that's what's happening. How could anything ever be any different from what it is? And that has to play out until it's finished. And it will. Tomorrow you'll be telling your wife, how much energy you've got. And then she'll be like, but didn't you feel lazy yesterday? And then you'll get angry because you wanted to see as what you are now. You're like, no. Because it's always, you're never anything. I'm not talking about you particularly, but you're never anything. It's always just movement happening. There's no you.
That makes sense.
I missed
Oh.
a little something there. You said acceptance, and then you said that's not the thing.
But yeah, it's not about acceptance,
How come
because
is that?
because who would accept? It's always the opposite. What happens in the uncomfortableness is there's an expectation of being active, that is going to bring you love, and then the reality is laziness. The freedom is the laziness, actually, but it's not about you accepting it, because who then would be this third hand of accepting? It's just the absence of all that energy, and your nature is love. Your nature is what you look for, never what you think it is. So you have an
It's
idea
kind
of what
a threat.
it is. Well, it is as it is. It's just the play of things. It's just the play of the dream. It's like there's this energy moving along saying, I need to be this in order to get love. And then the reality is the body's lazy. The body's like, yeah, I want to watch 4 hours of TV. The person in the mind's like, but that's unliberated, that's all these expectations of what you need to look like, and all of it was based on this idea that love is in the future, that love is in behaviour. But 4 hours of TV, is it? You can be so free with 4 hours, 8 hours even, of TV, 12 hours. Whole season of Lost. Red Bull. It's always there. It's just the activity of the person that thinks it's in between experience and the experiencer. There's no in between, there's just the movement. And there's nothing that will get you more love. Ever. Yeah. I call her, there's no external, but I call her as the joke, the external joy. The external joy. The joy you look at, because when she does this, it's insanely cute. She's flirting. I call it her flirting.
Sorry.
She pushes her bottom toward you, and if you pet the bottom of her bottom,
It's like a capsule.
yeah. And people thinking about you in a certain way, thinking you're a nice person, person, not a stingy person, a generous person, that will not give you anything. That's just movement. They'll change their mind the next day. They'll be like, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, you're generous actually.
Yes. Shoot me.
She walks in, sits right in the front. Off. It's like the dog is always as she is. She never needs to be anything else. That's her freedom, but it's not her freedom as the dog's body. Her freedom is everything. Because when she's free, everything's free. It's not like there's a separation. And Thai.
I'm nothing. Because reflex is not right, the sensation is not right. It's not, I cannot produce anything.
No. You don't even exist, it's just happening. Full on expression, explosion of expression. And there's no one solid thing, it's always moving. You can understand all these like speakers like about tantric sex or all these sort of things, just like the kundalini energy exploding out, these images of exploding, because the personal energy is like, it's like a narrow, even though it's an absolute illusion, it feels so narrow, but this is I don't want to say an explosion back into everything, because you weren't ever separate from it. It's just the end of that barrier between everything. Have fun, girlfriend! Have fun! Come on! Have fun! No? There we go! Yeah! What? She's like, come on, Lisa, it's 6:30. Yeah, it's dawn and dusk, they go. She's ready. Oh, really? I'm all into the romantics, ready for the pack run. On my bicycle, you're like, no, she's telling you to shut the hell up. Okay. So what a beautiful couple of days it has been spending with you guys. I've really loved hanging out and talking and eating and laughing and drinking. It's been a joy. So thank you very much. We'll do another one as well. You're more than welcome next time. It's a joy here at Stan. Stan is so generous and so amazing. Well, he couldn't be anything else. I mean, we're just using our limited words again. He couldn't be anything else but give this house at this particular time.
Qu'est-ce qu'on peut demander aux personnes qui partent ce soir d'enlever leurs bras et de mettre les couettes et les coussins dans les plastiques qui sont sous les lits. Quelqu'un qui traduit?
Now, those people who are leaving tonight, if you could please undo your beds and put the duvet and the pillows, yes, into the plastic bags, the garbage bags, and put their under the bed, put it under the bed, and put your baby sheet. Wat ik met mijn draad geweest.
I placed all the plastic under the beds, so you'll find the plastic bag for your doona. It needs to get covered from the dust. So you're doing, your bed cover. So there's a big plastic bag for your bed cover and pillow, and then there's a sheet to go over the beds. Obviously, once the covers are off, they've got to go in that back kitchen. If you could do that, otherwise that's Lisa's job. That would be great. Yeah, and just thank you. This is nothing to do with any particular one of us. This is everything that's expressed itself this weekend. What a beauty. It's like a collaboration of just one.
And thank you so much, Lisa.
Oh.
Yeah.
This way is nothing to me. And then this is the most important thank you. Screw Stan, screw Lisa, screw everybody else. The cooks. Oh my God. You two are amazing. We love you so much. Thank you for the great food this weekend. Oh, you're alright, sweet. Yeah, we're a bit weird. Oh, Stan, you missed your clap. You can't come in now. We already clapped you.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
You know one.
Yeah, so we said thank you, Stan, for you letting us use your house and for being so generous and
I'm the
open.
only guest here, so.
Yeah. I just love that attitude. So, nice.
I go in bed now.
Bye guys on Ustream.